3 weeks in, and fantasy streets are ruthless. PebRun's running perfection, 99% efficiency, undefeated, untouchable. While Team 3 couldn't find the lineup button if it glowed neon. If you're 1 and 2 and holding your breath, exhale. This is your therapy session. And welcome to Round Ball Rants. I'm Vincent Cooper, and tonight we're checking in on our Round Ball Rants Fantasy League Week 3 edition. The standings are tightening, waiver wires are heating up, and a few managers are already hearing footsteps. So grab your scorecard, sip something from Dubby, and let's break down who's surviving the storm and who's one tilt away from panic mode. Week 3 in Round Ball Rants Fantasy League reminded everyone that perfection isn't an accident, it's a pattern. Team PebRun owned the week, most efficient manager, highest score, best team award, and still the only undefeated squad left standing at 3-0. They posted a ridiculous 317 out of a possible 319 points, a 99.4% efficiency clip that made the rest of the league look mortal. Donovan Mitchell's 72-point explosion was the crown jewel, but every lineup slot hit. If you're chasing PebRun, you're chasing precision. Right behind sits Buckets, Boards, and Dick, yours truly. At 2-1 after a 301-236 statement win over UJ's. The numbers say it all. Efficient guard play, balanced front court, and zero panic on the bench. Still, give UJ's the credit. 236 in a loss is brutal luck. They earned the highest points in a loss honors and reminded everyone that record doesn't always equal strength. The middle tier, tight. Team Curry 30 Money, Twins, and Team 3 are all 2-1, jockeying for playoff seeding early. Twins delivered steady production top to bottom, while Curry 30 Money stole one in a grinder, 169 to 129. Team 3, however, earns our least efficient manager tag, just 45.6% of the possible points earned. The classic set it and forget it week that bites hard when Sunday hits. At the other end, Jay Has the Picks is still hunting for that first win at 0-3, but their lineup's competitive enough to flip any given week. Loose Moose 7763 squeaked out the lowest points in a win, 161 to 142 over Lamb 978. And in fantasy, ugly wins count all the same. A quick standing snapshot shows PebRun at 3-0, Buckets, Boards, and Dick at 2-1 in second, Curry 30 Money at 2-1 in third, and Twins rounds out the top 4 at 2-1 in fourth. Team 3 takes 2-1 in fifth. Loose Moose 7763 is 2-1 in sixth. UJ's 1-2 in seventh. Team 7 1-2 in eighth. B Clem 23 at 1-2 in ninth. Lamb 978 at 1-2 in 10th. And in 11th, Team 9 at 1-2. And in last place, Jay Has the Picks at 0-3. No debate. Team PebRun, 99% efficiency, 108-point margin of victory, and 3-0. When the league checks the scoreboard, that's the standard. Category management beats name value. Know your build, not just your brand. And that wraps up your Week 3 Round Ball Rants Fantasy League check-in. The scoreboard never lies, and neither do the bragging rights. We'll see next week if PebRun keeps the crown when we tip off in Week 4. Alright, we're locked into our league, but let's zoom out. The waiver wire is heating up, and opportunities out there if you know where to look. It's time for Waiver Wire Wisdom. Let's start with a quick breakdown for newer fantasy managers. When we say someone is 18% rostered, that means in all of the public leagues tracked on platforms like Yahoo or ESPN, only 18% of those teams have that player on their roster. So basically, that player is available in 8 out of every 10 leagues right now. Those are the gems you can grab before the rest of your competition wakes up. This week, one of those gems is Royce O'Neal out in Phoenix, roughly 24% rostered on Yahoo. With Jalen Green dealing with a hamstring issue, O'Neal's minutes and shot volume jumped. That's plug and play value for anyone needing threes and rebounds. Another sneaky add is Colin Gillespie, also in Phoenix. He's seeing real rotation minutes now, giving you assists, steals, and a steady floor. And he's rostered in fewer than 20% of leagues. That's practically free production. Dynasty managers, listen up. Zachary Rishisher in Atlanta is the kind of stash that ages well, under 30% rostered, but he's getting more touches every night as the Hawks experiment with spacing. The upside's long term, not just this week. For deeper leagues, keep an eye on AJ Mitchell in Oklahoma City. ESPN's latest report highlights his expanded role. He's producing across categories, assists, steals, and even boards for a guard. And here's the universal rule. Role plus opportunity equals value. If a player's minutes climb and usage follows, that's your signal. Whether you're playing in a redraft league, a dynasty build, or you're setting daily lineups for DFS, that principle doesn't change. Set your waiver priorities early, protect your budget, and keep an eye on those rostered percentages. Because when you catch a player's breakout week before it becomes mainstream, that's how you win your Tuesday. And while we're talking about cup games and scheduling quirks, here's something a lot of folks don't realize. Those extra cup nights don't just change the standings, they change your fantasy math. In fact, there's a little scheduling secret that every veteran manager watches like a hawk, and most casual players have never even heard of it. Let's break it down. This is what we call the 4-game week rule. I know it sounds simple, but it's the quiet cheat code that separates the veterans from the victims. Because in fantasy basketball, it's not always about who you draft, it's about how many chances your players get to put up numbers every week. Here's the deal. Every NBA team plays a different number of games from Monday through Sunday. Some play 2, some 3, a few get 4. That's what we call a 4-game week. And in our world, that's gold. Think of it this way. If you've got 2 players who score about 20 points a night, but one of them is scheduled for 4 games, and the only other plays twice, that first player is basically doubling your output just by showing up more often. So it's not always about who's better, it's about who's busier. Here's where it gets fun. Cup games count towards the regular season fantasy totals. So when those cup schedules drop, it shifts the math. Teams that sneak in an extra game that week, like the Spurs, Bucks, or Clippers during cup play, suddenly give their players a bigger window to shine. That's why fantasy managers get excited too about the schedule. They're not just watching who's hot, they're watching who's available more often. 4 games means 4 boxes of potential stats, points, rebounds, assists, all piling up while someone else's lineup sits idle. So when you hear me say he's on a 4-game week, from now on, that's your signal. That's the green light. It means that player's got more opportunities baked into the schedule, and opportunities equal advantages. It's a simple little trick, but it's one for the sharp managers to live by. And if you're just playing for fun, that's cool too. But now you know why the fantasy vets get that little grin when the schedule drops. They're already counting games before first tip. So when you play this game long enough, fantasy hoops, real hoops, or just life, you start to realize something. The biggest wins don't always come from the highlight moments. They come from the quiet ones, the little edges that nobody else values. Everyone chases the viral play, the 40-point night, the buzzer beater, but most of the season, and most of life, is decided by the details. The ones who see those patterns early, who act before the crowd does, those are the people who win over time. PebRun didn't go 99% efficient by accident. That's awareness, seeing the edges in plain sight. Same with the waiver wire. The managers who notice the subtle things, a new rotation, a coach's quote, a minute spike, they're not lucky, they're locked in. And when we talked about that 4-game week earlier, I said it's about controlling what you can control. That line. It brought up a memory for me. My cousin, Shelby. She passed away when she was 16. Car accident. Her favorite prayer was the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think about that often, especially when life feels like a bad fantasy week. You can't change every break or every bounce, but you control your attitude, your awareness, your effort. That's really what this episode's been about. Awareness. PebRun saw it. The waiver wire managers acted on it. Opportunity isn't luck. It's recognition. It's patience and courage and timing, all working together. So as you head into the rest of your week, in fantasy, in life, wherever you keep score, remember this. You can't predict every bounce, but you can learn where to stand when it happens. That's awareness. That's serenity in motion. That's the skill. This episode of Round Ball Rants is fueled by Dubby. Clean energy, no jitters, no crash. Fuel your focus at dubby.gg and use code RoundBallRants at checkout for 10% off of your order. I'm Vincent Cooper. This has been Round Ball Rants, where it's not just basketball, it's therapy with a bounce.